welcome to the Vegan Stew. And it's been a hot minute since I have been on the stew because it's Veg Fest season and I've been traveling. And I know that 2 weeks ago they started the show talking about my travel and wondering where I was. And Florida is where we were 2 weeks ago. And I got to see Ellen in person, live in the flesh. So once again, if you're joining the Vegan Stew and you like YouTube, if you would go and subscribe, that'd be amazing. Do Virtual Veg Fest. And which way is it? Virtual Veg Fest and the Vegan Stew. That'd be amazing. Virtual Veg Fest is less than 60 people to 1,000 followers. Will you be the person to help us get there? That'd be amazing. And let's say thank you to Bitchin' Sauce for being our sponsor this month, even though I don't think they've been spoken about this month because I haven't been on. So thanks to Bitchin' Sauce for being our sponsor. And if you'd like to win prizes, it's the last day of May. Go to virtualvegfestlive.com, hit the contest tab, enter to win one of 12 prize packs from Terrace Seed, Hodo Foods, Veggie, Cinnaholic, Fabulous, Bernie Wild's Adventure Sauce, Kathy Hester, Tripo Treats, BV Kids, Total Body Lab, Dojo Fresh, and Bitchin' Sauce. If you have any questions or comments, you know to put them into that little box. And thank you for putting that onto, that's where you want to go. For do that on the Stew Crew, thank you. And if you have any questions or comments, you can put them into the little comment box, and we love to have you as part of the show, and we love to get your questions and your comments, and it helps put us in a completely different direction we were probably going. So let me bring the Stew Crew in. We have Kelly, the Vegan Abler and Climate Healers. We got Marla Rose from Vegan Street, and we've got Ellen, the veg coach and the vegan realtor extraordinaire in Florida, that can help you get out of Florida or get into it. Depending on, I guess depending on your politics. Right? So we don't really have news. I mean, I guess there is news. I don't remember news from like the last time I said we were going to have news because it's been 3 weeks since I think I posted something. And I'm pretty sure there was stuff I wanted to talk about, but I don't remember what that is anymore. So anybody have anything to say before we jump into our topic? And our topic is, do all vegans have to be friends? Go ahead.
I was just going to say that John and I started a plant-powered pantry in our front yard, which is shelf-stable vegan foods like pasta, sauces, salad dressings, beans, peanut butter, almond butter, and that sort of thing in our front yard. And it's free 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Nothing, just come by. And that information is on our, if you're on Facebook, if you just look up Little Free Plant Powered Pantry, or on veganstreet.com, you can find more information about it. So we're excited.
Okay, just put that in the comments so that people can know where to go and check that out. That's really cool. Do you have a camera on that?
No, we're going to get one. A friend has been advising us on his Nest, I guess, is a good one to get. We don't have anything yet, but it's so funny. Like, you know, the attitude we have is like, all cameras pointing toward this pantry with like dollar cans of beans, and like, we don't care about our house. Just, you better not steal any beans, or vandalize our pantry. But it is something that we need to do, and we will. And I think it's pretty affordable too. So we're going to be doing that.
I think it's a good idea. I just want to see who's coming. To me, that's more like, I'm more interested in who comes to your house, because it's your house. I don't have the door closed, so there it goes, Franny. It's
right.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see what is hidden, just so that we will always have that available and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thanks for doing that, because it's important. Because as Bria said, Very thoughtful,
Well,
Mark.
you breathe.
And I guess,
So-
in terms of news, if we're throwing out news, just the most bizarre story of clamping down on teachers in Florida seems, it just seems to be ratcheting up minute by minute. And, they're trying to throw out this teacher who was showing Disney movies in class. It's like, I mean, there's like this there's a GoFundMe account, like, I don't know, 30,000 people have contributed to it to get her removed. I mean, what the money's for, I don't know. But
all it takes is one disgruntled parent,
right.
That's all it takes in Florida
Right
now.
Right.
Yeah.
And I literally have people wanting to meet with me because they just don't want to live here anymore. And can I list their house? I mean, that's just how people who came here because it was the American dream and they dreamed all their lives of moving here and just had no idea that this kind of repression could happen.
Yeah. It's really disgusting. And we can't think of it as a Florida problem, but a U.S. grown. It can happen anywhere,
Happening here in Canada.
I heard that your health minister. What's going on with Canada right now with recent elections? There was something.
Oh, they're trying to privatize our healthcare, but no. York Catholic School Board voted in favor of not flying the Pride flag for this month. And so really disappointed because the majority of people who spoke said like they support it, and they still went against the wishes of parents, students, because of what, and it doesn't even make sense because the Toronto Catholic School Board has a whole website that they've dedicated to Pride Month. So York, which is sort of a region of Toronto, so for them to have turned around, like to not acknowledge it is really disappointing, especially when you go to their site and they talk about anti-bullying and mental health, and it's like, do you not understand the correlation here? So it just shows Canada's. It has every potential to turn into a Florida, to turn into all of these like states, right? And our Ontario government is conservative,
right?
And we are going to have an election come up for our mayor. Now, mayors are supposed to be obviously they have a political leaning. They're not supposed. They don't run under a political party, but they. So our last one was a conservative. So I'm really hoping we get someone more progressive in Toronto as our mayor. But yeah, I mean, yeah, we have because even in Calgary in Alberta, just voted in ultra right wing.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing about.
Which is sort of the left, and then it was a bitter battle between ultra left, ultra right, and wingers got in. So it's so easy to.
It's just I think it's really easy to think that it can never happen here, and like those of us in the U.S., the three of us here, I feel like we're all just so tired from 2016 on with seeing what we've seen and what is capable, what is possible in terms of, it just sounds so cliched, but, it's that fascism, it can happen in a heartbeat, really, just one election going a bad way. And I feel like that's part of what happened with Roe v. Wade is that we were kind of asleep at the wheel, just assuming, well, it's on the books, or we can't take anything for granted. We have to close every possible loophole, because that's what the fascists, they're playing the long game like we're not used to. They've been doing
voting.
The scary thing is that nobody's accountable. It doesn't seem, even though there are prosecutors who are trying to go after the bad guys, it just doesn't seem like
lying doesn't matter anymore.
Violence, killing. Killed a police officer.
As someone who just spent time in Florida,
Sorry.
Again, yes,
It's good to see you. Yes.
in your town in Sarasota. I'll tell you a little story because it hasn't happened anywhere else that we've been. But one of our members of our team, who is a person of color and male, was walking in Sarasota, Ellen, and came out of a store, and a car drove by and yelled the N-word at him.
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness.
It's not your responsibility. However, that is your community.
Mm-hmm.
And he came back to the house and said, "Hey, this is what happened." And I said, "Well, how do you feel?" And he said, "Well, it's not like it's the first time that I've been called that." And I said, "We can't normalize this. Can't normalize it."
To that, I met with the head of fundraising for the Jewish Federation here, and we were talking about anti-Semitism, which is just a huge thing internationally, but the most amount of money in fundraising now is spent on security, hundreds of thousands of dollars to protect a public event in a public parking lot that has some kind of Jewish theme to it, or in a building. I was at an event where there's a guy who was donating his time, going around with an iPad, just taking pictures of everybody and going to all the doors. He had like a whole security system of 10 different cameras on his iPad so he could be checking all the entrances. I mean, it's like, it's such a police state now.
Well, it's because guns have basically, if you're born in the United States, they should, practically give you a gun.
Yeah.
Well, in the South, that's true because you don't need a permit anymore.
No, but I mean, the laws are just so lax and.
Right, I know. They just changed them in North Carolina when we had. I have no good words. Let me give Shayla the code. I have no good words for like what happened here in North Carolina politically, because a politician that in Mecklenburg County, which is 60% blue, flipped and said, "I'm going to be a Republican now," and gave the Republicans a supermajority in our government, local government, and state government, I should say. And suddenly all the laws are changing to abortion with a 12-week ban, because that's their compromise. And as Stephen and I have discussed, we can't let what they perceive as a compromise normalize the fact that it shouldn't be that to begin with. They're taking a very shrewd and smart way to go about it. We're not going to do 6 weeks like Florida and South Carolina now. We're going to do 12 with other rules and stuff to go along with it. And this is our compromise because they want to get reelected. And they know, like, and people just aren't smart enough to really understand like what is happening like right underneath our noses. And it's scary. It's really scary. It's really scary to live in the South at this moment in time because of I mean, outside of living in Canada, which Kelly has told us over and over that is going to flip to the way we are. Marla, you're the only one in a safe space. You're the only one in a safe space. It's cold there. It's like really cold there in the winter. So
look at it now. It's nice out. I mean, people have this impression that Chicago's cold always, and 6 months of the year it's cold. 6 months of the year it's either way. So, but every place has its upsides and its downsides, right? Every single place. And so it's about what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept.
And, I think some of us have to stay put to be the voice, be the voice.
We can't all come around, right?
I just got back from California visiting my millennial daughter and her husband, and, God love them. I think about what was happening when I was in college and just out, and we were like protesting this kind of stuff. I mean, we got these laws passed in the first place.
Right.
And what are they doing? They are just comfortable in their own lives, making a lot of money. And it's just kind of like they have blinders on. You know, if
Are
I
you
were them,
talking
I would
about
be.
your daughter's generation?
Yeah,
Really?
exactly.
Okay. Mhm.
Exactly. I mean, I don't see the protests in the streets. I don't see the righteous indignation that reporters like, so many of us were out there. I mean, we were lending our cameras to that voice of protest, and that's what
Right.
created the change. And there's nothing
Um,
like that now. Social
yeah.
media a little bit.
How old is your daughter? This daughter you're speaking
30.
of? Okay. Yeah, so my son's 20, he'll be 21 soon, but mm, maybe their activism is going to look different than ours in significant ways. But I do feel like in some ways they're very understandably cynical about the process, and the outcomes, and seeing these horrific people get elected and reelected. But I do feel like I feel like change is long and slow, but to paraphrase Martin Luther King, but it bends towards justice. And I do feel like these kids are so much more evolved than we were growing up in terms of like how they perceive the world, how they perceive gender, how they perceive race. And that is eventually going to trickle out, but yeah, maybe their activism is going to look different.
It'll trickle out for
Well, they better
our
get elected. That's all I can say.
Yeah. But these dinosaurs need to get the hell the fuck out. The Mitch McConnells and people like that. Sorry, Dr. Shayla, right when she comes in.
That's okay.
Right on the curse. Right on the curse.
Need to get out.
Sounds like I came in for the good part.
Right.
We're talking politics.
We didn't mean
Yeah.
to, but it just
It
happened.
just happened. Because I shared a story of when I was in Florida, one of our teammates who's a person of color was walking out of a store and a car drove by and yelled out the N-word at him. And when he came back and told us the story, I said, we can't normalize this. Because he was like, it wasn't the first time. Like he just kind of shrugged it off. And I was like, we can't shrug it off. We can't shrug off what happens to LGBTQ, trans,
Right.
Jews, people of color, anybody, Latinx, anybody. We can't just shrug it off. Non-binary, because when we start to just shrug it off, I don't know what to do. That's the other hard part is what do we do?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can't
It
just shrug it off.
typically, takes allies, I will say are typically the most helpful. As a person of color, I recall I was working in a rural part of Ohio right after I finished my residency training. So I was a new baby doc working in rural Ohio, predominantly white area. And one of my really good friends, we both started at the same time. She was a fellow doctor too. And so she saw a patient apparently who I had seen and was unhappy because I took away their controlled meds that they didn't need. And so they said, yeah, that colored doctor, blah, blah, blah. And they were just going off about it. Yeah. And she stopped, right? And she's a white female, but she stopped them right then and was like, nope, you're not gonna, use that phrasing. You're not gonna use that terminology. If you want to talk about the doctor, you can say Dr. Toombs Withers if you want to refer to her, and so it really just takes people to step up, and say it's not okay. Even, if it's not directly affecting you, if it's affecting others, it takes all of us to speak up about it.
I guess he went to the next person and said that white doctor or whatever distinguishing thing about her, he could say that was derogatory to the next person is probably what he did. That colored doctor, that white doctor who's maybe Jew, that Jew, these, I'm not going back to this clinic. They're against me.
Well, do you feel like some of the tension is, I feel like this is kind of a gross oversimplification, but I feel like each generation is more advanced and more progressive and, just a little smarter than the previous generation in terms of inclusivity and in terms of, understanding that, true diversity is really important and valuable. And I feel like, my grandparents were the most loving, kind, warm role models I could ever imagine. And they said words like colored. And if I had dated a black man as a teenager, I'm sure they would have been horrified. My parents were similar. I was really rebellious against that kind of mindset. My son is just, it's like miles away from where I do feel like there is a bit of like sort of leapfrogging about, beyond the ways that we were raised. And, obviously we need for it to speed up, and, we don't have a lot of time to be twiddling our thumbs on these like very serious issues. But I do feel like, it takes time. We need to keep advancing, obviously. But I think some of the tension comes from people who just obviously don't want to change, don't want to see their parents and their grandparents in a negative light. And so they're trying to return to a time that never really, included people like Dr.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's as with everything, just because we did things a certain way back when doesn't mean it was right, and you could say that for a number of different things, if you just because it was done that way doesn't mean that it was done the right way. And the more we know as time progresses, the more we should grow as a society, as a people, and correct those things. I agree with you, Marla, that it does seem like this, next generation, I'm more hopeful in the way that they do things. They tend to be a bit more outspoken, and tend to have their own way of thinking about things, and not so much just kind of doing as they're told type of generation.
Yeah, I agree. And, they weren't born out of nowhere. Like they were raised by people who had more advanced attitudes than their parents, who had more advanced attitudes than you know what I mean? So it does take time, and it takes generations. But I do feel like my son's generation, I'm sure your children, they're like light years ahead of even where, the Gen X and,
Right. Yeah. I will even say, even for me, just with like pronouns becoming, more of a thing that we're more aware of now. But, versus my kids, my oldest is in middle school, and he's well aware of, calling his friends by their proper pronouns. And he'll, tell my husband and I that, Mom, this is such and such, and their pronouns are such and such, so they are aware.
Right. Exactly. That's such a good example. And I'll keep this short, but like I remember years ago, so this child who's a few years older than my son, his mother, he wanted to have long hair as a child. He had like this long, wavy blonde hair, and my mom, was living with us at the time, and she had a bit of, Alzheimer's, but she used to refer to him as a girl, like, oh, she's such a pretty girl, and not to be mean, but like she perceived him as a girl because of the markers of femininity. But this child, he must have been like 5 or 6, 7 at the time. He had no offense to that at all. He was just like, yes, and that was my first clue that maybe it's not just this kid. Maybe this whole generation is just a little different about that. And my son's the same way with pronouns. Is that like he could care less if somebody wants to refer to themselves in this way or that way. He just wants to be respectful. Like it's no
exactly
sacrifice on his behalf to try to accommodate that,
Right.
I think what's so great about this generation, like with my kids, is they're very vocal as well. And so like I feel like I am the one who kind of cut that mentality, and I know if I had like gone down a different path, met different people, sadly, I probably would be as ignorant as my mom was, right? But because of the people, because I was rebellious as well, and I was a little shit disturber too when I was a teenager, that I broke that, and my kids are so vocal about it. So when my mom, like, the good thing about it is, like, that generation is just because they're experiencing things like having trans grandchildren or non-binary grandchildren. They're being forced to deal with it. And so I know that looks a little messy. Like, my mom had like two of her best friends both have trans grandchildren. Right. And so my mom will refer to them, in their, either dead name them or whatever. Yeah, exactly. Right. And I have to correct them, but my kids have no problem calling out my mom.
Right.
And the good thing is, like, my mom gets embarrassed by that. Like, she doesn't want to be judged. She's ignorant, but she also doesn't want to be judged by her grandchildren. Right. So it's kind of a good thing. I mean, not to, she learns a little bit. Will she ever get there? Probably not. But at least,
But you know what? She might be miles ahead of some of her neighbors. You know what I mean? Or it really does take all of us kind of working at these different levels. And I love your phrasing of it, Kelly, that it almost is like breaking a generational cycle of abuse or of addiction, and just creating a new pattern. I love that.
And I feel like learning new vocabulary too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like maybe those of us who are here in vegan in general are people who are inclined toward thinking for ourselves and, rebellious. Like, if we were to take personality quizzes, we would probably end up more on that side than the conformity side, but
right. That's true.
Well, that's a good segue to our topic.
Oh, that
I did that on purpose.
I knew that was very good. Segue to our topic is, do all vegans have to be friends? And no. Just like all people don't have to be friends, all vegans don't have to be friends.
Exactly.
I feel like the problem is that you feel like, oh, you're vegan, oh, I'm vegan too. And that you should be aligned with a lot of things from that point forward. But there are white supremacist vegans. There are racist vegans. There are flat earth vegans. There are anti-science vegans. There are the same woo in the vegan community that's in the QAnon community and the Trump-loving community and the MAGA community. And that kind of blows my mind because we fight every day to save the planet and save the animals and to work on health, only to have people who you think would understand when you vote a certain direction that you're completely going against your ethics of being vegan, if you have ethics of being vegan. But you may not. You just may be like, I like to eat vegan and it's health, or it's just, I like vegan food. And it doesn't extend further than that. But there are ones that extend further than that who vote in a direction that's completely against saving the planet. Granted, we probably all voted the same, and something happened recently that there's going to be pipeline drilling in Alaska, right? It's going to be hard for the planet. They're voting right now on putting a pipeline into West Virginia. It's part of the deal that's going on right now. I mean, and so all these little things, huge, they're huge things. They seem little because it's like, oh, it's my vote. But all these votes compound and it leads to what's happening like literally right now in our government and what's going to happen in Kelly's government. And people are so consumed by their lives. And then like we think, wow, we want friends. I don't know about any of you, but when I was younger, I was just so happy to have friends that it didn't matter like like what they were, how they were, and then you grow up and you go, well, those things matter. You know, like I need to be friends with someone who's respectful.
Right.
And doesn't lie, isn't an alcoholic, like things like that.
Mhm.
And
And
the
it's so
vegans are-
hard in the
yeah.
vegan universe sometimes to find enough of those things that are on your list, whatever they are, to be your friend or to be your lover. And sometimes if they come in with like the top 3, make excuses because like what would be worse, like hanging out with somebody who wasn't vegan? And if you've done that in any kind of recent history, it's excruciating. It's just, it's like you have to come up with a priority list, and sometimes it's just not. People don't come in with the top 10 at filling all top 10 of your requirements or whatever it is. I'm sure we've all done workshops where you are taught, in personal growth to like give up the list. Don't have expectations. Only you can change your reaction to other people. You can't change other people.
Right.
But I don't need to be with it. I mean, I had more non-vegan friends before COVID.
Right.
And then COVID happened, and I looked at these people on social media, and I went, a lot of the people that went were not vegan. And I mean, most of my time is spent with people that are, not everybody, but anyone that is around us is very vegan compatible. So, and they're good people, because otherwise I wouldn't want to be around them.
Right.
But
And that's one of the keys, I feel like even if they aren't vegan per se, they should at least, for them to be considered a friend, they need to be able to respect you as a person and respect, what you do for yourself. And if you, want to live a life and consume food in a way that doesn't harm animals, and even if they don't choose that for themselves, they should still be respectful of that and your choice.
So to flip that, because I always think about this, to play devil's advocate, couldn't they just say to us, well, can't you just be respectful of the animals?
They do say that.
Right? I mean, and I think about that and I feel kind of hypocritical because, but then I go to, I'm Jewish, and if I followed the Sabbath, or if I was Orthodox, or I was diabetic, would you be disrespectful towards those things because you're not? Because vegan is not just food. Vegan is a value. It's an code of ethics that I'm living by. And that takes it into that realm of, if I had diabetes, would you be shoving like fat down my throat because that'll kill me? Not sugar, but fat.
Some would. That. Well, no, some would still do both. They say just a little taste. I always everything in moderation, no matter how bad those sugars are.
So I feel like, okay, so a couple of things about friends is like, I feel like it's really easy on social media to have superficial friends that you genuinely consider a friend, but they're technically probably more of acquaintances, but people you haven't met yet. But in terms of like actual real life people you either talk to on the phone or you see in person, my bar for friendship's really high. I don't consider everyone and anyone a friend. So I do feel like my standards are fairly high. Like I can be friendly with certain people, but in terms of a friend, this has to be someone you can envision a life together with, not just like, oh, we share this one interest or whatever, so I have a lot of vegan friends and I have, a fair number of non-vegan friends. Now, like in terms of like the respect my choice, I eat animals and I respect your choice to be vegan. They're not comparable, just like if I'm an activist on behalf of anti-racism, it's not reasonable for a Nazi to say, respect my choice. I'm a Nazi. I respect your choice for being an I'm not saying that people who eat animals are Nazis. I know that's where people will go, but that's not my point. My point is these are not choices without consequences. There are victims in these choices. So me being vegan is not the same as like, so like say I decided to be macrobiotic or decided to do this or that diet, keto or whatever. This has an ethical basis to it, you know. So and it's also not about me respecting or not respecting. It's about the fact that I'm not going to pretend that eating animals is a victimless, you know, everyday kind of normal, you know, fine thing to do. I'm not going to pretend that there are no victims involved. So it's not about respect or disrespect. And I think that's part of what we need to clear up. It's about like, I'm not going to allow it to be reframed as just another choice among many choices. You know,
right? If you're murdering people, and I don't think I want you over my house.
you know,
And I guess I shouldn't say I don't think. I'm pretty sure I know. I don't want you
Right.
over to my house if you're out murdering people
Right.
or any type of being.
But if the idea
It really is. It
Yeah.
really is a matter of priorities. Like, I know you had a bad experience in Sarasota, Helene, but after the Veg Fest, a group of us went to the beach and just hung out, and somebody, my significant other actually, just popped up with the idea, just say something you're grateful for, express some kind of gratitude. And we all went around the circle and did that. And after a Veg Fest, are you kidding? I mean, it was like everybody was saying just how glad we were to be in that literal circle of friends. And then we walked the beach at sunset, and then there was a group dancing on the beach, and we were all dancing salsa. And it was just, there were people in that group. One guy is a flat earther, and it drives me crazy. It's like, you know, but it's priorities. The priority is he's vegan. So I'm going to accept him from me. I'm just speaking personally, into a group that I'm going to hang out at sunset with in a lifestyle I love, after being with a bunch of vegans all day. And those are the priority first, always is being vegan. And when you have those choices to make about who do you spend time with, that's always at the top of the list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. It's not that I'm opposed to having non-vegan friends, and I really don't have a lot of friends. And one of my dearest friends moved far, far away, and so I decided I'm gonna go on this app, this friend app, and meet people, and I'm gonna just look, you know, and kind of expand like my like, you know, my own likes and dislikes and, you know, and whatnot, and see who I like match up with. And there was a couple of women that you know, that I matched with, and we were talking, and we were gonna I was gonna go and meet them to go to to do karaoke, because I love karaoke. We were gonna go to a comedy club, because I love comedy clubs. And then I thought to myself, we're going to these places, and the topic of food, like we're gonna eat, and then I got to talk about vegan. And although I had it on my profile that I'm vegan, like I don't know how they really feel about it. I don't even know if they look, you know. And I was just like, this is just, it's too difficult. It's just easier to be friends with a vegan, right? Like it's just, because that is my passion. Everything that we do here in this family revolves around vegan activism, and so it's, you know, it's just, yeah, you know, it's hard. And I know it's so hard to make friends the older you get, right? But for me, it was just like, I'm not, again, not opposed to it, but it is really, like you said, Ellen, you know, like our priority is vegan and vegan activism and environmentalism and social justice and all that. And, you know, it's just, it is easier to, if you're like, I mean, in that case, I was seeking a stranger out to hopefully be a friend with, right? My friends, I don't really have many connections with like people that I went to high school with or anything like that, where it's kind of, you know, you inherited, you know, whatever, right? You know, who you were before you were vegan. So
right, grandfather did.
I'm only going to be friends with a vegan, but if I had to like like I said, like trying to find more friends, I would probably try to find vegans.
Sure. I mean, I think then that's a barrier that you don't need to have to deal with later, because that is such an essential part of you, that like the idea that's just something that you crossed then, that you made it over that hurdle. They're all vegan. So at least then you have a place to start where you're on common ground.
But those people who aren't vegan, they may be open to it.
Mhm.
Because you don't know, and then when they go out with you, they may eat vegan.
Yeah.
And then you don't know where that will go from there when they're not with you.
That's
so
true.
there's always that
Yeah.
opportunity with new people to, I mean, you don't have to be like, you don't have to have a flashing light pointing at you saying vegan. When you go out with somebody, people pay attention to what people are ordering. Now, granted, I would look at menus before I chose a place to go with somebody if they didn't know. And I would just order. And when they say, hey, what are you getting? Or when they offer to share, you say something like, oh, I'm vegan. So, you order what you want, but, I'm ordering vegan. And they may be like, oh, and this is the best case scenario on the planet. They go, well, let's all order vegan so we can all share food. And then you're like, these people are the best people ever. Because that sharing food thing really matters.
I don't like sharing food. I just want my own thing.
Oh, you're those people.
But yes,
I'm that person too, Marla.
I
We're
definitely
like huge share food people. I mean, because we want to try everything. But we do have members of our team that are like well, let me put it on your plate, as opposed to the rest of us whose hands and forks and stuff are in each other's bowls. So we just eat. And then you have to be conscious when we have like a person who's like that. You have to go, okay, we can't just devour food like we normally do. We actually have to put stuff on plates and eat off our own plate with our own sauces. Okay, I guess we'll be human today. So one of the things that is a level of friendship for me is, will I have you at my house? Will I invite you into my home? Will I let you stay here? Right. And Ellen has been here. So, and then of course, welcome back. But I kind of get a feel like, would I let you stay here? And would I let you stay here without us? With my animals. I mean, how far will I go? But these are my walls. This is my safe space. And who I invite into it really matters. So if I'm saying, I mean, I'll invite people over if they need help or something like that. But if I'm like socializing and I invite you here, it means I want to. It means I like being around you, and I probably want to cook for you, or Ellen cooks for us. She came into my kitchen, just cooked us food. So best house guest ever. But that's a level for me that is, I guess, something that's been for a very long time. Well, do I want to share my personal space with you? And whether you're vegan or not, do I want to share my personal space with you? And then if you are here and you're not vegan, it's a vegan house. So are you respectful of that when you're here? And where will I bend that line? You
never know who you're going to touch. So we got invited last minute to a party at a pool. Was it just yesterday? Memorial Day. And some people were vegan, some were not. And there was a couple there. They own a coffee shop and they serve vegan desserts there, but they're not vegan. But she said to me, we got to have you over and I'll cook vegan for you. So you just never know who you're reaching. When I go out with clients, we almost always have lunch together, and they'll look at what I'm eating, and they're looking at my car. Oh, you do marathons at the age of 70, and all this stuff, and they go like, I want what she's got, kind of thing. And it's that kind of lead by example without saying a whole lot. And all of a sudden, if they spend time with you, the floodgates open. As they realize, what is it? It takes 7 touches before somebody makes a change, or whatever number you want to throw in there.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that there
So
is
like
also a
Marla said, it's what you're looking for in a friend. I will say not all of my friends are vegan, but my best friends are people I've had commonalities with. So like folks I've done residency training. We went through a grueling several years, and so we are still friends regardless of what they eat. And my triathlon friends, some of my other best friends are just in my core group of we've trained for Ironman races and triathlon together, and so they amongst my triathlon folks, they tend to eat healthier anyway, because like Ellen said, it takes a certain type of nutrition to fuel you
right.
in endurance type of activity anyway. Even if they aren't all vegan, they just tend to eat on the healthier side. But then they know that I'm that person who's going to talk about, the plants and talk about, eating more plants. And, one of my really good friends, she got to a point where she started liking tofu and broccoli, but she'll like eat it on the side, she'll like, so our other friend group don't quite see her eating. I said, I see you eating that tofu and broccoli. So you definitely can, if you don't start off with those people in your friend group being vegan, but you will definitely make an impression too on those folks who you like to be around.
Right.
What was incredible when I was in California visiting my kids is that they start out with a blender smoothie for breakfast and a blender smoothie and a big salad for lunch. And I'm going, kids, you're kind of vegan before 6. And it's like they would have never put that label on it, but because they do a lot, they're super fit and do a lot of running and CrossFit and all that. They know that's the best nutrition for their recovery.
Right.
And then of course at dinner it all goes to hell. But
that's funny.
You make little impressions. Sometimes you don't even know what your effect is.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. One of my so there's been research on this that bears this out. That is harder and harder as we get older to make true friends. It's much easier when you're in high school and college and in your 20s. But some of the people I've made friends with, kind of post 2016 have been other activists who are working on anti-fascism. And it's interesting to me how a few of them have come over to this side because they're starting to see the connectivity between, like, one of my friends who started out as just your regular omnivore who I met through activism after 2016. She started reading about the treatment of workers on egg farms. And then, we talked a lot. And she's kind of a foodie. She loves to bake and cook and stuff like that. So I think if you just make yourself available in that way, where you're just really open and helpful, that is so useful, and there is also a certain psychology to when you go into a restaurant and you order first, you are more likely to have that kind of influence on people, obviously, because but so, like, especially if you make it just sound like, if it's not a vegan menu, but you say, oh, I love the baked potato. Can I do the baked potato with the salsa on the side and then those black beans? Do you guys have like guacamole? Can I just make a plate of that? Make it less complicated than that, but like, so people can hear you ordering, so people can sort of put together the pieces and see it's really not that complicated, that kind of thing I think is really helpful. Yeah, I think there's a lot of illusions and sort of myths around veganism that you have to be very strategic and, very careful with your planning. And there's only a few restaurants you can eat at. The more you can sort of remove those barriers, the better, and who better to do that than a friend, so.
It's awesome when you make good friends. It's really amazing it's also when you make good friends.
Yeah.
And being fortunate enough to have them in your life, especially when you need help or for you to help others. There's, I'll go into something, just like you don't want to throw the love word around, don't throw the friend word around. Because like I've had a vendor say, "But I thought we were friends," when they were mad at me.
That sounds
And I don't
manipulative.
and
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't say I was in the middle of whatever I'm doing at a festival, and
Mhm.
like, no. This is not about friendship, because I wouldn't have you at my house. I know that. But it's not about friendship. This is a business relationship at this moment in time.
Right.
And you don't get, I mean, obviously some vendors get privileges because I am
Mhm.
friends with them. And it's hard because I know, just like with friendships, some people need more than others.
Yeah.
There's different levels of need when it
For
comes to working and being with humans. Some people
Mhm.
need you to temper your personality because they can't handle you. So you know that you need to not be full on you. But then there's some people you can be full on you with and be like, oh, this is great. But when you have a strong personality, you learn that you have to kind of ebb and flow and ease because you want to have friends. So
And I think we've talked about this before, that sometimes we will tolerate bad behavior just because somebody is vegan, and we don't want to let them go, or we don't want to be confrontational or whatever, because you're vegan and you really have a good heart. I know you do, even though
No.
you just
Not
treated me
anymore.
as an asshole.
I
well, it's
cut
hard
people
in business. It's harder,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
in business, it's harder because
Yeah.
I made a commitment. I think at the end of last year, I think I said to Stephen, I don't want to bring vendors into my life as friends anymore. I was
Mhm.
like, sweaty. He's like, Stephen, just shut up. So I don't want to. I'm not going to make concerted effort to be friends with the
Mhm.
vendors. If it happens, that's fantastic. And I grandfathered in the people that are already friends.
Right.
But moving forward, because it gets weird.
It's sticky, right? Like
It's
when
sticky, it's
Mhm.
sticky because you do have that feeling of I don't want to hurt them, but I also have a business to run.
right. And then that
So
also can get into the realm of fairness. Because if you
right,
favor someone because of friendship,
right.
they may not be, they may, it may be unfair how you're handling other vendors who are not friends, So
Right.
it is good to, have that kind of neutrality, at least in terms of business. But one of the things that I realized, when John was sick a few years ago, um, I did cut many people out of my life, but they were superficial. They weren't deep friendships. But I can't emphasize enough how important friendship is, because the friendship was like a netting that held me up when I just had no reserves of strength left and no hope. I was just filled with fear and despair. And they talked me off of 5,000 3 a.m. ledges. And these are people who I consider friends, who I have never met in real life and may not ever meet in real life, but I genuinely consider friends. I do feel like, especially maybe older generations, where maybe family isn't, I don't know, like John's got 3 brothers. They're lovely people, but they just weren't real present in his life when this was going on. They weren't being, they weren't callous or uncaring, but it was my friends. And this is why it's so important for men to, nurture and nourish and maintain friendships. It was my friends who sustained us through the darkest of times. So for selfish reasons, as well as like reasons of just quality of life, that are altruistic and unselfish, but you need try to develop and sustain friendships. And that could just be like You know, I would say, like, don't take ones for granted, you know, just like even if you send a quick text to someone, just thinking about you, or I saw this funny meme, it made me think, those things really matter, you know? Don't just expect that someone's going to stay in your life if they are ignored or whatever. You know what I mean? It goes both ways. So,
Right. It just takes a few minutes, or not even a few minutes. It takes like 10 seconds to
seconds.
send a message to someone to say, I'm thinking about you,
Yeah.
as a friend or lover or whatever it is. It just takes that few minutes. And
And
it
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 means
is
the whole world.
it is typically received in a positive fashion of
Yeah.
that's, and you never know what that person's going through in that moment.
Right.
That message could have changed the whole day's outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's always nice to know that someone's thinking about you. I mean, not stalker thinking about you, but you know, like healthy people thinking about you. I mean, you have to put the caveat in, because I mean, suddenly you have like a stalker person who's just all in your face, and you're just, now you got to get rid of them, and that's like really uncomfortable. So
This is
for your
why
friend, it's like, be your friend.
quality
Like, no,
You know, that's kind of an interesting concept. Just because as vegans, we tend, or I'm speaking for myself, I feel like I sometimes put up walls and defenses, and it's not easy for me to let people in for all kinds of reasons. You know, it's that whole trust thing. And
you also don't have a ton of time, right? So
right,
someone
right.
you let in is someone you've really vetted, right?
Thoroughly.
well, that's that time thing as well. I always find like the new people, they want, let's hang out, let's do something.
No,
Well,
no.
I have to fit you into the world, and that's not always easy, because I have my, who I talk to, who I text with, who I
Right.
rarely get on the phone with, because I don't do that anymore unless I'm driving. And then you have business stuff, and I'm a text person, back
Yeah.
and forth. It's much easier for me. Or Zoom, I'm happy to Zoom, but I can't, it's not so easy just to slide somebody in to space, into a world that's not, that's crazy busy at times. And then when it's not busy, I don't want to see anybody. So I have
Yeah,
two
yeah, you want to
extremes.
rest. You have to,
Right.
yeah, come down from
Recharge.
all of the
Recharge.
pulling. Yeah.
Like, I want to spend
Yeah.
time with Steven, and Heather's allowed to come over, and I will cook for her. So, and that's pretty much the two people I see most often, outside of leaving my house and doing a festival.
Right.
Somebody
So,
asked me today if I wanted to do coffee or lunch on Friday, and I go, coffee?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the misperception. I remember this a couple months ago, Helene. We were doing a stew call and talking about. I don't remember how the topic of food came up, but somebody said, "Oh, you guys must spend a lot of time cooking," and like, really not, you know. But I think friendship is the same way. I'm probably not doing a ton of in-person stuff, but if a friend tells me I really need to see someone in person, I can't do texting right now, you know, I will obviously prioritize that if this is a true friend, you know. But I don't think maintaining friendships generally needs to take a ton of time. If it does, then it's not natural, and it, you know what I mean? Like, I just,
right.
you know,
It shouldn't be a time suck. People shouldn't suck your time away. And the only
Yeah.
reason why it feels like a time suck is because, you know, that's just, they're a take personality, and they tend to latch on to the give personalities. And as a giving personality, you have to kind of cut it and recognize what that is. And, you know, as you grow and age and mature, you start recognizing that, and then you just don't let it go. you just don't let it go any further. I mean, I don't like ghosting. I prefer to communicate with people. However, communicating with people doesn't always work, because
Right.
they just say all these reasons why you should be friends with them, you should have them in your life, you should do whatever it is after that. And then you say, well, at this point now I am going to ghost you, because I'm not getting through to you, that this isn't working for me. So I just see ya. block.
Yeah, boundaries are important, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is. And also being mature enough and communicative enough to set those boundaries
Mm-hmm.
in every relationship, whether it's a great friendship or not. I think we need to have boundaries
Right.
as to what my time is, and I'm
Right.
allowed to say. I feel so bad because Katya, who's been on the stew, asks us to do stuff all the time, and it's 99% no.
Well, there's
Because
that 1%.
there is. I mean, we did go and celebrate her birthday, her 30th birthday with her, and but as for that, I just don't want to leave the house.
Yeah, I know. And there are certain friends, I have certain friends like this who are more extroverted and more socially oriented, who want to go out and do more. I would be perfectly happy to, like, even during the pandemic, it's just like, even after the, like everything was lifted, it's like, can I just stay home, please? I mean, I love to see people, but I'm not a huge, go out and I can't tell you the last time I went to see a band or go to a bar or anything like that, seriously social. But so, like, you have to find things that work for both of you, because like I said, I do have one close friend who texting does not work for and wants to do more in-person time. And that's a hard one because I can only do it like a couple times a month, maybe.
And that's, and that's okay. I mean, if somebody needs, I'll get on a plane. I'll jump in the car. When my cousin's mom died, I just looked at Steven and I said, we're driving to Florida. Like, there was no thought process whatsoever. It was, this is who you go. My other cousin's husband died. I drove up to New York. Right. My other cousin was like, you didn't just drive up here for this. And I said, no, I did. I just drove up here for this. So she lost her husband unexpectedly. I mean, and I have a place to stay. I can see other people. I mean, it was whirlwind. It was probably like 2 days, but it's just what you do for people that you love.
Yes, you do.
It's just what you do. You get on the phone. Like, Heather stayed up all night with me pretty much when Marshall got into chocolate and couldn't get taken to the vet because it was past that point. It was past the point of no return where there was nothing they could do for him. He just had to ride it. And when I say my dog looked like he was coked out and he was acting like he was coked out, he was. And she stayed up all night, and she's a vet tech. She stayed up like all night on the phone with me as I told her what was happening with him. And, she had to go to work the next day. Right. But she stayed on that phone with me until like he calmed down enough that we can go to sleep.
Yeah. Yep. That's a real friend.
Yeah.
It's not so much the amount of time you spend together, right? But the quality, and the knowing that you're always there through thick or thin, right? You may not want to go up for dinner a couple times a week or whatever it is, but.
No, I buy food for her, so I get to see her. So I bribe her with food. Yeah. So if I buy the food, she has to come get it. Yeah. then we get time. Because that's like, there's not a lot of people I want to spend that time with, but she is one of them. And and for both of us, not just for me, it's for me and Steven. We both, and I just went to Memphis and spent time with the Imagine Vegan family. That's another family that I would spend as much time as I possibly could with. We spent a day in Disney with them. It nearly killed us, but we spent a full day at Magic Kingdom with the Imagine Vegan family. And I wanted to do that because I wanted to go to Disney with kids. And their kids are 3 to 12 or 3 to 13. And
how many kids?
4. 5 total, but 4 were with us. And from 3 to 13 years old. And it was just it was the most fun time because I love children and the kids love me, and I mean, it was really a very joyful experience. And with kids that young, 3, I think it's 3, 7, 12, and 13, I think we're at age-wise. I should know, but I don't. But good kids, great kids. 3-year-old, it took till like 7 p.m. for him to get into oh my gosh, I'm overtired and leave me alone. So, but he's 3. and almost 4, and it took that long. And they had some growth moments that we got to be part of. And I got to hold little hands, and like we got to ride. Aspen sat between me and Steven and Pirates of the Caribbean and held both our hands. I mean, it was like the sweetest thing, because she took my hand, and then I said, Steven, I'll hold your hand too. And she was like, oh yeah, and Steven held her other hand. It was just everything that I thought it could be, outside of the fact that it was stupid hot and it was raining and humid and exhausting, because we can go anytime, but they can't. So I spent a lot of money, and they got full value. They got a full value day, which meant we got a full value day, which we don't normally do. And Steven was ready to kill me.
It sounds like it was a good splurge.
It was so much fun. And there are people that after the festivals we have over. Like we're done. Like after the festivals, we're kind of done. Like my team, we feed them, we eat some way, somehow, and then we go to sleep. And we've had them over to the house and hang out and eat food and talk, and just, there's not a lot of people that we would have after the festival. Like I don't want to socialize after the festival.
I was going to say, most people just want to go home and crash.
Right. Yeah. And it takes us time to get to that crash point in different levels. I mean, some of my team go out after the event. Right. Well, I've got 31-year-olds on my team. So
like a high of sorts, right? You're out of fuel, but you're running on, on fumes kind of thing.
Yeah. Katya's an extrovert. So Katya's like, let's go. And we're like,
yeah. And it's like you never want it to end,
Well, that's not true. I definitely want it to end.
I don't know.
Sometimes before it starts, I want it to be over. So, but that's,
and that's because you're an organizer, but as a participant, like I couldn't get enough. It's like, this is such a surreal life. And I look back on that period of time before COVID, and it's like, wow, how lucky we all were to be able to just go to events like that.
That's true.
Definitely.
Hang out with our vegan friends, like-minded souls. That's always the phrase that everybody uses. And it's true.
Yeah, all in one place, helping other people who are not vegan that come to learn that we're normal.
What she does, y'all.
You guys, I have to take off. I'm sorry.
Let's close it out, Marla. Anyone else have anything else to say? Add?
Love you all. Value yourself and your friendships, and don't sell yourself short. And
it's actually you first, then other people.
With
every relationship.
Yeah.
Take care of you first so that you're able to give to others. If you don't take care of you, then you won't have anything in your pot to be able to give. And that's a whole other show. So, which I think we talked about. All right, so let's do it. Thank you, Marla. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Sheila. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you once again for joining the Vegan Stew and being part of our show. Everyone who commented and watched and did thumbs up on this one, we appreciate it. Go to YouTube and subscribe and hit the notification button for the Stew and for Virtual Veg Fest, so you know when we go live, because you just never know when we will go live. And that way you'll know and you'll join us. virtualvegeslive.com to enter our contest last day of May. Get in so that you can win we have 12 prize packs that you can win. And next is Greenville Fun Fest for me on June 11th in Greenville, South Carolina. And then we're home for Triangle Veg Fest in Durham, North Carolina, June 25th. And then I have a break. So we'll see you in 2 weeks, because we are off the first Wednesday of the month. Topic, don't know. I'll post it in a week. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.